Next on the news, remembering Bishop David O'Connell. A community prepares their last goodbyes for the falling church leader, as the world still waits to know what exactly happened. Feeling skeptical, the fate of student loan forgiveness hangs in the balance as the High Court has some major concerns. Both sides of the aisle agree on China's growing threat as lawmakers take steps against the popular app TikTok. Plus, another near miss, this time in Boston, how two planes almost collided if it wasn't for some quick thinking. I'm Ed Wilkinson in for Christine Persichetti. Currents News starts right now. A peacemaker, a pastor, and a precious friend.
I've been crying for the last 2 days knowing that he's no longer here.
The final farewell begins today. Los Angeles remembering Bishop David O'Connell. It's been nearly 2 weeks since parishioners prayed with their beloved bishop. Now they just pray for him. Bishop O'Connell's body was found February 18th, shot in the torso. 2 days later, police arrested his housekeeper's husband, who confessed to murdering him. But the world still doesn't know why. Currents News' Jessica Easthope is standing by in Los Angeles, where a special memorial mass is about to begin. Hi, Jess. Can you tell us a little bit about the investigation? Has there been anything new developments?
Hi, Ed. Yes, there are very few developments at this point. So much of this is still a mystery. We don't know what this man, Carlos Medina, even looks like. The man who confessed to shooting Bishop O'Connell in the torso in his home in Los Angeles, like you said, on February 18th. And we haven't yet heard the name of his wife, his housekeeper and longtime housekeeper. We know that Carlos Medina alleged that Bishop O'Connell had owed him money. He had done work in his home, but so much of this is still a mystery. What we do know is that, again, Bishop O'Connell was shot in the torso on his home in Los Angeles in Hacienda Heights on February 18th, and Carlos Medina is being charged with murder. He's also being taken up on gun charges, and right now this investigation is ongoing.
Jess, what can you tell us about this parish of St. John Vianney in Hacienda Heights? That's where the memorial mass is tonight, beginning 3 days of mourning. Was the bishop there often?
Yeah, Ed, believe it or not, he was there the night before he died to celebrate Mass. St. John Vianney was a parish that he lived at for the last 7 years. He was very close to this community, beloved by this community. It's mostly working poor families, immigrants, and these were the people he ministered to. These were the people who he met where they are.
Yeah, Bishop O'Connell was the Episcopal vicar for the San Gabriel pastoral region, and that's where Hacienda Heights is. Can you tell us a little bit about the communities that he served?
The San Gabriel pastoral region is in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles, and it encompasses parts of East LA as well as the San Gabriel and Pomona Valleys, and you know, like I said, it's working poor families, it's immigrants, and the bishop is known for working with these people. These are the people he ministered to. These are the communities that he made such an impact in.
Hey, Jess, we're hearing that the bishop was known as a street priest, meaning that he met people where they're at. Have you heard any stories about that?
Yeah, at Bishop O'Connell, or Bishop Dave as he's known here, he prayed outside of abortion clinics. He met with the newly arrived. He fed the homeless. He actually, during the pandemic, carried a monstrance with the Holy Eucharist right to the San Jose Hills, which are right in the background here. And, you know, people here are going to miss him so much. He was so beloved in his community, and priests here actually talked about him ministering to the community, and it earned him the nickname Peacemaker. They're also now comparing him to St. Paul. Take a listen.
You know, I think that's a great name for him. I think the Archbishop gave him that name in his statement. And I think it's perfect, not just because of all the social work and a lot of the things he did in the community, which he did a ton, but in that interpersonal way where he would love you even in the midst of your acting out.
Bishop Dave was a man for all people. Sort of like St. Paul, we hear St. Paul being all things for all people. And he had a way of receiving people who were in their most vulnerable and neediest moments, but simultaneously was a community leader.
Hey, Jess, do all these people plan on attending the funeral and the wake?
Yeah, and so the Cathedral of Our Lady of the Angels, where his funeral will be held, has a capacity of 3,000 people plus standing room. He was so beloved in the community and so well known, so I wouldn't be surprised if his funeral is at capacity this week.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jess. We'll check in again with you tomorrow.
Thanks, Ed.
St. John Vianney will be live streaming that Mass live at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Just go to sjvhh.org and you will see the link to that live stream right on their homepage. Thursday, March 2nd, a public viewing will take place at the Cathedral of Our Lady of the Angels. At 10 p.m. Eastern Time that night, the cathedral will hold a vigil mass for the beloved bishop. On Friday, March 3rd, the funeral will take place at the cathedral as well at 2 p.m. Eastern. Both the vigil on Thursday and the funeral on Friday will be live streamed. Just tune into olacathedral.org for more information. Jessica Easthope and Michelle Powers will be covering that funeral mass. Plus, they will have exclusive coverage on how the late auxiliary bishop changed the streets of Los Angeles. That'll be Thursday and Friday right here on Currents News. Also in the news, the highest court in the country is considering if President Biden's student loan forgiveness program is constitutional. And as Reed Binion shows us, some Supreme Court justices are skeptical.
Today is a great day to cancel student debt.
High stakes at the High Court as the Supreme Court hears arguments in two cases impacting millions of Americans. On Tuesday, justices considered whether President Biden's plan to erase student debt is constitutional.
Some of the finest moments in the court's history were pushing back against presidential assertions of emergency power.
Conservative justices also pointing to the price tag of the loan forgiveness program, an estimated $400 billion over time, according to the Congressional Budget Office, and questioning whether the program is fair.
What I think they argue that is missing is cost to other persons in terms of fairness, for example, people who've paid their loans, people who don't have planned their lives around not seeking loans, and people who are not eligible for loans.
Some liberal justices also weighing in on what may be fair.
I'm wondering whether or not the same fairness issue would arise with respect to any federal benefit programs.
One of the cases is a challenge from 6 GOP-led states wanting to block Biden's executive actions. The second involves 2 individual borrowers suing because they are not qualified for full debt relief. The Biden administration argued Congress gave it the power to forgive student loans because of financial hardships Americans face due to a national emergency, the COVID pandemic. An estimated 40 million people qualify for the program, which can forgive up to $20,000 per borrower. Reed Binion, Currents News.
Meantime, in China itself, there are growing concerns over Christian persecution, thanks to a new report. Within the communist country's borders, there has been a surge in the government ordering churches getting demolished, Christians being detained, bishops as well as priests disappearing without a trace, and other travesties. This is according to China.aid, which is a non-governmental Christian non-profit group. This all has happened over the past year as the Chinese Communist government continues to crack down on Christians. There is something on both sides of the aisle are agreeing on, the growing threat of China. And as Cole Higgins tells us, lawmakers have some words of warning against the growing popularity of the social media app TikTok.
The powerful House Foreign Affairs Committee holding a hearing on the threat from China to national security.
We are living through one of the most dangerous periods in American foreign policy in a generation.
The committee is also set to vote on a bill that would empower the Biden administration to impose a nationwide ban on the Chinese-owned social media app TikTok if the White House determines TikTok and its parent company, ByteDance, knowingly transferred TikTok's user data to any foreign person working for or under the influence of the Chinese government. Sanctions would be required if the Biden administration determines the companies helped the Chinese government engage in surveillance, hacking, and censorship or intelligence gathering, among other things.
I don't have TikTok on my phone. I think there is strong evidence that TikTok is working with the CCP and sharing that data.
TikTok says, quote, it would be unfortunate to censor millions of Americans and do so based not on actual intelligence, but on a basic misunderstanding of our corporate structure. Already, though, the White House telling federal agencies they have 30 days to remove TikTok from all government-issued devices. A Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson saying, quote, I can't believe that the United States, as the world's #1 superpower, is so afraid of a mobile phone application popular among young people. This shows a lack of confidence. I'm Cole Higgins reporting.
In New York City, Mayor Eric Adams says faith is guiding his decisions in government. Speaking at an interfaith breakfast, Adams denounced the separation of church and state, saying he can't separate his beliefs because he's an elected official.
Don't tell me about no separation of church and state. State is the body, church is the heart. You take the heart out of the body dies.
Mayor Adams also promoted prayers in schools, saying, quote, when we took prayers out of schools, guns came into schools. A Catholic class in Brooklyn is doing more than their morning prayers. They're reciting their 10 Commandments.
I am the Lord your God, you shall not have a God before me, you shall not take the name of the Lord.
These are the students of Class 1A from Bay Ridge Catholic Academy. The kids performed this song at a school assembly for kindergartners to 4th graders on Tuesday. They have been learning about the 10 Commandments in their religion class and decided to share their knowledge. During the assembly, the school also passed out awards for Students of the Month. Another group of Catholic school students got a lesson from the Bishop of Brooklyn as Bishop Robert Brennan led the next stop in the Lenten pilgrimage this morning. Today, Catholics took a trip to Our Lady of Grace in Gravesend, where the bishop celebrated Mass with the students of the parish's Catholic Academy. Bishop Brennan spoke about God giving us strength to deal with what we encounter in life. The bishop also spoke about focusing on putting the needs of others before ourselves. It's not too late to sign yourself up for the Lenten pilgrimage with Bishop Brennan. To learn more about it and to get resources about it, just go to thedioceseofbrooklyn.org/Lenten pilgrimage. There's a lot more news headed your way. Ohio's governor tours the toxic train derailment and gets an update on the cleanup process. And another close call, the planes that would have collided if not for some quick thinking. Plus, why the men in blue made a very important DoorDash delivery. President Biden's pick to lead the Federal Aviation Administration participated in a confirmation hearing. President Biden tapped Phil Washington to lead the FAA 8 months ago. Washington is the current CEO of Denver International Airport, but he also has led many municipal transit organizations, as well as Biden's transition team for the Department of Transportation. The hearing comes amid a series of scary flight and airport issues that the FAA has vowed to answer over the last few months. The newest trouble on the tarmac happened in Boston on Monday, when 2 planes nearly hit each other while one was touching down and the other was taking off. Chris Wynn has the details.
In the hot seat on Capitol Hill,
The safety of the traveling public will remain my top priority.
Phil Washington, President Joe Biden's pick to lead the Federal Aviation Administration, answering senators' questions Wednesday at his long-awaited confirmation hearing.
As I look at your record, I see a record where you've got experience with buses, you've got experience with trains. Buses and trains are very different from planes.
Senators grilling Washington, who has years of road and rail transportation experience, but less than 2 in aviation as the CEO of Denver International.
I will own well-intentioned failure, and FAA employees will own their success.
The hearing comes as the FAA investigates an apparent close call at Boston Logan Monday night between 2 planes that came within 565 feet of colliding, according to Flight Radar 24's preliminary review.
They're really going to want to find out, was there a communications breakdown? Was there a distraction involved?
The FAA says the pilot of a Learjet 60 took off without clearance even after being told to wait, as JetBlue Flight 206 was preparing to land on an intersecting runway and had to take evasive action.
The pilots did a really incredible job. I mean, we came in, it was a scary situation, but it was very smooth.
The incident, one of 5 close calls involving a commercial airliner on a runway this year. Chris Wynn, Currents News.
The CEO of the rail company involved in a toxic accident in East Palestine, Ohio trail derailment, will appear before a Senate committee next week. Alan Shaw of Norfolk Southern will appear on Capitol Hill on March 9th. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer called the meeting because he wants to know why the company, quote, prioritized billions in stock buybacks instead of putting that money toward safety and toward their workers. Ohio's Governor Mike DeWine toured the toxic train derailment today in East Palestine. He and his wife got a first-hand look while speaking with crews on site. They also stopped at 2 contaminated waterways and met with township leaders at a local high school. Another deadly derailment, this time in Greece. At least 36 people were killed when a passenger train collided head-on with a freight train. Passengers described it as nightmarish after an intense fire broke out. There's been 1 arrest so far as an investigation is opened to figure out what caused the accident. Police are expecting the number of people killed to rise. Pope Francis is devastated and heartbroken. The Holy Father sent a message to the president of the Greek Bishops' Conference expressing his sadness about the train crash by saying, quote, entrusting the souls of the deceased to the loving mercy of Almighty God, I offer my heartfelt condolences to the families who mourn their loved ones. We are looking at the new logo for the Pope's trip to Hungary. The logo incorporates the Budapest Chain Bridge, a symbol of the capital city, and invokes the Holy Father's ideas of building bridges between people, which is appropriate since roughly 1 million Ukrainian refugees have traveled through the country. The trip will take place from April 28th to the 30th, and the motto for the Pontiff's 41st journey abroad is, Christ is our future. Now to an update on the war in Ukraine. Russian President Vladimir Putin has admitted to military losses while speaking to the country's Federal Security Service, or FSB, on Tuesday. Fred Pleitgen has more on the speech from Moscow.
I think there were a lot of interesting things that Vladimir Putin said. I mean, on the one hand, where he's saying, of course, how important the FSB is to the effort, to the war effort in Ukraine, the special military operation, as the Russians call it. I think it was quite interesting that he said that FSB operatives were active on the front lines in Ukraine, but also behind enemy lines, as he put it. Obviously saying that they were trying to infiltrate the territories that were held by Ukraine.
I would like to thank all of those who acted at the forefront for this work, for your personal courage, professionalism, and determination in ensuring Russia's security.
I also think the admission that there had been losses amongst the FSB was definitely quite interesting.
Unfortunately, there are losses in our ranks as well. The leadership of the FSB must do everything to additionally support the families of our fallen comrades. We will always remember their heroism and courage.
One of the things that we've been seeing over the past couple of days especially is Vladimir Putin really trying to rally his forces. Obviously, the intelligence service in this case yesterday yelled a big speech for the special operations forces, telling them how important they are. And this, of course, comes as the war in Ukraine grinds on, and there certainly are some issues, it seems, also with some of Russia's forces fighting on the ground.
That was Fred Pleitgen reporting. President Putin's words came as an aide to President Volodymyr Zelensky says Ukrainian troops may pull out of the key city of Bakhmut. The city is a gateway to the Donbas region, and both countries have been fighting for it for weeks. In this week's tablet newspaper, priests are arguing against artificial technology. A chat box has recently made headlines for its ability to write sermons for religious leaders. Our reporters asked Catholic experts whether the morality of it should be used for homilies, and several weighed in. You can read more in the article titled Soulless Homilies in this week's tablet. Also in the paper, a different kind of faith-based challenge. The Chinese Catholic population continues to grow in the Diocese of Brooklyn, and that's presenting an issue, the need for more bilingual clergy to properly serve the community. The paper takes an in-depth look at this issue. Be sure to go to your local church and pick up a copy of the tablet to see those stories and more. You can also subscribe online at thetablet.org. Still to come on Currents News, the offices that protected and served in a much different way during a winter storm. This is a flight you wouldn't want to miss. One EasyJet pilot gave passengers a once-in-a-lifetime surprise when he turned his plane into a glowing spectacle. This is the Aurora Borealis, or more commonly known as the Northern Lights. Flying from Iceland to the UK, a pilot made a 360-degree turn over the North Sea to ensure passengers could see the iconic lights. Crew members to passengers were all captivated by one of nature's greatest sights. From glowing lights to flying rocks, 3 Jesuit priests and a pope now have a celestial claim to fame. Announced by the Vatican Observatory on Monday, 4 asteroids were named in honor of Pope Gregory XIII and 3 astronomers from the observatory, Johann Hagen, Bill Sturger, and Robert Janus. The 4 new names were published alongside 72 other names in an update by the International Astronomical Union. Here's a story about police going above and beyond with the phrase protect and serve. As Andy Matson shows us, doing the right thing to help a single mother is all that matters.
I have DoorDash stuff in the car.
In what began as an everyday accident, officers quickly made sure all involved were treated for minor injuries. Soon after, driver Brianna Fantazzi asking officers for some unusual help since her Ford Fusion was no longer operable.
Is there any way that you guys can deliver that for me?
Yeah, sure, I'll take it for you.
Handing off a DoorDash delivery, Brianna later explaining she was 6 months pregnant, working to make extra money and could not afford to lose this delivery.
How did you feel when you asked the officer and he responded with yes?
Relief.
An act of kindness going a long way while staying within city limits. Brianna expressing gratitude for officers helping her let go of more than just food.
So much stress and so much overwhelm, and I'm like, oh, thank God.
My immediate response to her was, I hope you get a good review. I understand why she wanted to do that. She was concerned about making sure the delivery got made, and I mean, it's her job.
Lieutenant David Allen and his fellow officers, humble heroes with big hearts lifting Brianna's spirits on an icy, stormy day.
Serving is what we are able to do. I enjoy doing that greatly. I got your DoorDash.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Also excited to feed her own 4 children, parent Jenna Pizzo, surprised at first to see police outside her home before getting the quick backstory. As for Brianna,
I hope they give you a good review.
an occasion to smile despite being in an accident in the middle of a delivery.
Thank you. I really do appreciate it. I mean, if you guys didn't come fast enough, I don't know.
With 20 years on the job, Lieutenant Allen says it's his first DoorDash delivery, but one he won't soon forget. Andy Madison, Currents News.
Before we end this newscast, we'd like to remind you of the services being held for Auxiliary Bishop David O'Connell. Thursday, March 2nd, a public viewing will take place at the Cathedral of Our Lady of the Angels in Los Angeles. At 10 p.m. Eastern on Thursday, the cathedral will hold a vigil mass for the late bishop. On Friday, March 3rd, the funeral mass will take place at the cathedral at 2 p.m. Eastern. Both the vigil on Thursday and the funeral Friday will be live streamed. Tune into olacathedral.org for more information and to watch it there. Currents News reporters Jessica Easthope and Michelle Powers are in Los Angeles and will be covering it all. Plus, they will have exclusive reports on how the late auxiliary bishop changed the streets of Los Angeles. That'll be on Thursday and Friday, right here on Currents News. And that's it for Currents News. I'm Ed Wilkinson, in for Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.